Hello, hello. Let's see if I am live streaming. Just want to make sure that everything is in working order at this point. All right, looks good. So you'll have to excuse the rudimentary live stream this morning. I am without any technology, and my battery on my phone is about ready to die, and right now I have no way of charging my phone up. So my phone is about to die, and I have no way of charging it. So, but I wanted to get this in here really quickly because we're still in the middle of setting up the new house, and I wanted to talk about the ubiquitous nature of torture. Uh, so if you're having any issues hearing me, or if you are uh, having any difficulty translating what I'm saying, if there's any interruptions, if you could please somehow let me know in the chat, that would be really helpful. Okay. So what does torture look like? Thank you, Robert. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. So I've titled this The Ubiquitous Nature of Torture, or The Ubiquity of Torture. So it's pervasive, it's all encompassing, it's a 360 degree program, basically, that's been implemented in our lives as in the American domestic population. And it starts at birth. It starts when you are warm and safe and snugly in the womb, and your mother is your life source. And when it's time for you to emerge and it's time for you to be a fully actualized human, is when the torture program begins. You are ripped from the womb. You are then carried off, helpless and completely dependent on the adults in the room around you, ripped away from your mother, hosed off, usually smacked to make sure that you have they call it to make sure you have the breath of life, and that you're not choking. They stick their fingers in your mouth and make sure that if there's anything from, the womb that's got into your mouth or into your lungs, they want to get it out quickly. They clean you up, they scrub you raw, they wrap you in a blanket that's probably not good for your skin, and then hand you over to your mother. So this is where it begins. This is where the torture program begins. And it continues on through your infancy, when you're an infant. And all of the experts tell your parents to let you, quote, cry it out. And they force you into your crib, close the door on you so that you are alone and abandoned, and you're screaming and hollering and you're wanting attention. And all of the professionals tell you to cry it out, to let you cry it out. So thus continues the torture program. Hold on one sec. I'm live. What's going on? Oh, I couldn't get on the computer. My phone's almost out of battery, because I don't have the proper and we don't have any of the technology to make it work. So you know, yeah, yeah, yeah. So did you need? Yeah, I'm live. Well, then don't talk to me. Okay, all right. So it continues, on into your infancy, where you're stuck in a crib, crying it out. The professionals have told your parents, "Oh, just let her cry it out. Let him cry it out." Luckily, though, what I'm seeing a lot within the last couple of years, especially on social media, young mothers are opting out of that torture program. They are not advocating for the cry out. If the baby is crying, there's clearly something wrong. The baby is clearly in distress, so they work on on communicating with the baby or comforting the baby to keep it from being distressed. So luckily, it seems as though the torture programs that have been so normalized over at least in my lifetime, are starting to reverse. People are starting to fight back a little bit. But the torture program continues on into when you're a toddler and you do toddler things and you behave like a normal human being, like a toddler human being. And you're punished for being a toddler and you're punished for growing and experiencing and expressing your emotions. And so you're put in a timeout. And you put in a little chair and you're facing the wall so that, you can't see anything. You have no um, communication with the outside world. It's just you and a little corner for like 15 minutes. And for a toddler, that's an eternity. So the torture program continues, and then as you know, it continues on into elementary school, and then junior high, and then high school, and then college, and adulthood. And we think that when we're adults, that the torture program kind of eases off a bit. We are under the impression that because we're grown-ups, that we can handle the torture program, that we've somehow, moved on from it. But the torture program is stronger than ever right now in the United States, especially because remember, we've experienced a full immersive exploitation of your human experience through CIA programs, through the military, and through sort of this global industrial complex, which involves corporations, involves health, and involves military antics and military programs. So many people will come into your life, and it's probably going to be through social media, that are part of the ongoing torture program. They may look really cool. They may say lots of really cool, interesting things that you've never heard before. Usually they're speaking gibberish, because torture isn't always about making you feel bad. Torture isn't always about diminishing your experience or pushing you down or putting you into that oppressive state. Torture can also be it can also kind of like make you feel good or give you a false sense of security or a false sense of a deeper understanding of the world. The world is very simple. Anybody who comes along with some kind of theme, they have some sort of, maybe they wear a funny pair of glasses, which you really think is cool, or maybe they have a squeaky voice, which is kind of cool. And then they offer all of this incredible insight and incredible information, but they don't really simplify it for you. They don't really condense the information and present it to you in a very down-to-earth way. That's part of the torture program, is to distract you, is to make you feel enamored with the gibberish, make you feel enamored with this individual. Usually they're a popular online person. So especially online is where the torture program has really been able to flourish. It's really been given an opportunity to plant a seed and grow and really just become this pervasive thing. So one of the things that came about recently is this really popular song that was written by Oliver Anthony, who's from Virginia, and he wrote a song about the working class and how unfair it is that um, that there's the haves and then there's the have-nots, right? The class divide, the classic, you know, uh, what? The classic class struggle that, is amplified through this song, right? So I'm not saying that the song itself is part of the torture program, but I am saying that the way that the internet has allowed it to um, move out into and basically saturate every corner of the internet and every corner of social media is interesting to me, because as the saturation was happening, and I saw that how ubiquitous it was, I started to think about music in general and how it is used as a way to torture inmates. So a friend who's a fairly popular singer-songwriter, someone we like to call, on the right side of history, was complaining about how he didn't feel that Oliver Anthony's song was a legitimate was legitimate. He felt that he was being lifted up illegitimately, or that he was being, manufactured by the state or something. That it wasn't an organic process. It wasn't legitimate. And I think that, he's on to something, but unfortunately, because he's looking at it through the lens of a singer-songwriter that's not as popular as Oliver Anthony, he's misconstruing his feelings. I'm not trying to tell people what they're feeling, but I think he's saying this doesn't feel right. And so I'm going to latch my personal issue with this onto why it doesn't feel right. And what I'm saying is the reason it doesn't feel right is because of the saturation, not the song itself. The song itself is fine. The message that it sends is good. It relates to a large swathe of the population who is struggling financially. It resonates with so many people in so many different ways. But it's the saturation that is what got me. The fact that it's so pervasive on social media. So the torture program also involves saturating an inmate with one song over and over and over and over again, right? So when inmates go to these black sites, or they go to Guantanamo Bay, or these, so-called terrorists, are captured, and a hood is put over their head, and then they're thrown into these prison camps, or these black sites, or places like Guantanamo Bay correctional facilities. Oftentimes the guards are told to play one song over and over and over and over again to break the person psychologically, right? You have to break down your part of the torture program is to break you down psychologically before they can break you physically, and before they can change your position in the world. They want you to admit that you're a terrorist. They want you to admit that you're a problem, so that they can then find the excuse to punish you, right? So they create these psychological operations, such as playing one song over and over again and saturating every corner of your cell with that song. See, I think of social media as a prison cell, and anybody on it is a prisoner. That's what I've always thought since its inception. Okay, since it was created, that's my belief, is that social media is kind of like a prison cell. And there's lots of people, there's lots of guards, there's lots of assets, there's lots of government cutouts, there's lots of torture programs that are immersed and weaved into social media in order to keep the prisoners distracted, in order to keep them focused on what they want you to be focused on. So, I wanted to talk about how the ubiquitous nature of torture is also weaved into our personal lives as well. Ghosting someone, not responding to their text messages, not responding to their phone calls, not responding to an individual is a form of the torture program that's been so normalized in our family dynamic. We have each family has a scapegoat, each family has a golden child, and each family has an enabler. And You may look at yourself and say, I never had a problem with any of my family. They were all really great to me. They always supported me. They're always the best. My mom is the best, you might say. Well, that's because you're the golden child. That's because you're the favored child. And your parents have told you, your parents are part of the torture program. They've been, you know, conditioned to say certain things to make you believe something that's not true. So your parents may say to you, "Oh, I don't have any favorite children." "Oh, no, no, no. That's not true. I love and respect all of my children equally." That's not true. I have actually had mothers tell me to my face, "Yeah, that's not true." I've had my next door neighbor, actually in Pittsburgh, told me openly, "I do not like my daughters. My daughters, I do not like them, but I do like my sons. I prefer my boys." All right. So there are favorites, especially when it comes to the mother son or mother daughter dynamic. Usually mothers prefer their sons. Now, not in every case. Or if they have two sons, they prefer one son over the other. So this is true. This is an embedded truth that you have all been led to believe is not true. And so I want to uproot that and get it out there and tell you the truth that there is favoritism, and that within that favoritism in the family dynamic comes torture programs like scapegoating someone, ghosting someone, not returning their phone calls, disrespecting them, and waiting for every opportunity, taking every opportunity that they open their mouth, that the scapegoat might open their mouth, waiting for an opportunity to use whatever they say against them. That's what your torturers do. A Guantanamo Bay detainee might say, "I'm thirsty, I need water." And the guards and the torturers will take that statement, twist it around, turn it upside down, pick it apart, and turn it into a threat, which then equals, "Wait, you're trying to poison me." Somehow the guards will tell the Guantanamo Bay victim, "If I bring you water, that means you're going to throw it in my face and try to hurt me." So they will do everything they can to undermine everything you say. It doesn't matter what you say. When you're saturated in a torture program that never ends and it starts from birth, this is what life is like. So I wanted to really drive that point home. And again, going back to social media, going back to uh, your favorite influencers, or your favorite, the people that offer you information that you feel is so valuable. These people are part of the torture program because they will speak the language that echoes what's already in your heart and mind rather than tell you the truth. Now, there are people out there that are not part of the torture program and they're on social media. For instance, Mike Benz, and that's spelled Benz. He is not part of the torture program. He tells you exactly what's going on. He tells you who is who and what is what, and why things are the way they are. That is not something that your torturer will do. People who torture you are not interested in transparency. They're only interested in scapegoating. They're only interested in either ignoring you or pulling you into a lot of gibberishy, unfounded language that sounds good in your head and it sounds good to your ears, but it's really just nonsense. That's also part of the torture program. It's really important to know that social media is now the equivalent of, like, say, Guantanamo Bay. You're the prison inmate, and the guards at play, they do these good cop, bad cop. You could have a favorite social media influencer who's super quirky and wears cool glasses and is really fun and has all this really amazing information. And she has her, or he has their favorites that they might bring on and talk about, stuff that feels important. But it's really just part of the torture program. That's what it's really about. The situation with the family too is really important. Um, I cannot stress enough the normalization of torture in our lives. You know, this business of crying it out in the crib, this business of timeouts where you have to sit in a corner when you're 4 years old because you did a thing that a 4-year-old would naturally do, and so you're being punished for it. What could you do in place of those things? You could make this 4-year-old experience an opportunity for teaching. You could um, you could pick up the child, the infant who's screaming his head off because he's lonely or wants attention. So we've been told that we should feel lonely, and that we should learn to stand on our own and be independent. And we've been programmed this way since infancy when we were ripped from our mother's womb. What's a better way to handle the birthing process? Uh, I see it happening. I see it changing in modern day culture right now, and I'm very thankful for this. Many young mothers are opting not to even go to the hospital to give birth. They are doing water births at home. They're using, what are those women called who help with giving birth? Somebody on here knows, midwives or something. So they're opting for that kind of experience, and they're not even going to the hospital. So what's supposed to happen, and what the natural order of things would be, is that when it's time for the baby to emerge from the womb, it's very much a sacred experience. And so the baby should immediately, when he's covered with whatever he's covered with, clearly I've never given birth, so I don't know, whatever. So I'm just telling you in my own way. I'm just describing this. So when he's covered with whatever he's covered with, he should just sit on the mother's stomach or sit on her chest. So it needs to be flesh to flesh. There needs to be that bonding moment. Children who have had that bonding moment from birth grow up to be like extremely rational, calm people who kind of understand the world a little bit better than those who've been ripped apart so quickly, right? Cleaned up and then handed back in a little towel or in a little blanket, right? Every single day we are confronted with a version of the torture program. I have friends whose family members are treating them just awful, like just I wouldn't wish what some of my friends are experiencing. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I've never, like, some of the things that I'm hearing, I'm just like, I can't believe that this is happening. Somebody's facing homelessness and, has a whole, you know, entire network of people that could help her, and they've all ghosted her and they've all turned their back on her. So torture is so part of this lived experience. It's just so pervasive, and it's just been saturated into every aspect of our life that we don't even recognize it anymore. We're so unfamiliar with anything outside of the torture program that it feels odd. That experience I had. Now, this wasn't really about torture, but this is about the saturation of, like, the negative, right? So years and years and years ago, long before I was married, long before I even knew JP, I was out with a friend, and we stopped in at a little cafe, and I had a little Pomeranian. I had my little dog with me, and she wanted to go somewhere else. And I said, okay, well, let me just go walk the dog home, and then we can go. Well, a guy showed up while we were hanging out at the cafe. He starts talking to us, and he's really cool, and he's cute and all this, and he's chatting with us. And so when I tell my friend, yeah, before we move on to do the next thing, let me go drop off my little dog, he said, oh, I can walk with you. I can, if you don't mind. He was super polite, very, not too aggressive, but very polite. And he said, I'll walk with you. And he's like, kind of, happy. And I said, no, 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 it's okay. I'm just around the corner. I can do it myself. Well, later on that evening, my friend said, "You do realize that guy was like flirting with you, right? He was flirting with you all throughout the cafe, all the time we were at the cafe. He wanted to get to know you. He wanted your number. He thought he's probably going to want to ask you out later. But you're so used to being treated with so much disrespect that you don't even recognize it when somebody likes you. You see, you become so accustomed to bullshit. You become so accustomed to echo chambers and torture programs that you don't even recognize it when there's something authentic. So this is kind of where we are right now, I think. There's a lot of fear going on. There's a, regarding possible, mandates in the future, or possible masks for kids in school in the future. And so there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of influencers out there saying, you have to fight, you have to fight it, you have to fight it. And yeah, sure, but you're going to do it in a way that works for you and your kids, if you have kids. Your torturers, and that includes your favorite influencers, do not dictate what you think and how you feel. And neither do I. So and I feel like this has sort of come to a real point in this experience where the ubiquitous torture program is so pervasive. And so it's really, really important that we just look at everything that comes across our feed with a critical eye. We ask ourselves constantly, how does this benefit me personally? Does this information that this person is sharing that sounds good, does it benefit me somehow? How is this helping me personally? Having a critical eye regarding your family dynamic and your family of origin, recognizing whether you're a scapegoat, a golden child, or an enabler. And if you don't know what those terms are, scapegoats usually have this idea that they don't really belong to the family. And the family has never overtly come out and said, we don't like you, you don't belong with us. But every indication has sort of led people to that belief. So it's easy to wait for the scapegoat to say something, to turn around and then say, how dare you? This was a betrayal. And so they're always looking for an excuse to do the bad thing to the scapegoat, whether it's to ghost them or whether it's to attack them. The golden child is the one that's favored. They get all the attention from the brothers and sisters and the parents and extended family members, and they never do anything wrong. It's usually men. Usually men are the golden children. And then the enabler is sort of like the person in between, the person that feels that they always have to fix everything. Like, oh, I've got to fix these relationships, or I've got to be the one that's in charge of family events and blah, blah, blah. So the enabler makes themselves very, very available, which can put them either in a role of a golden child where they're lifted up, or it could put them in a role of being a scapegoat. If you make yourself vulnerable and available and you enable all of this bad behavior, then chances are you will be the victim of it or you will benefit from it. So that's a really super quick synopsis of the family of origin sort of scapegoat, enabler, golden child dynamic, which continues the torture program, right? So another aspect to the torture program, which I think is really important, is this idea of interventions. So you have a family member or you have a friend, maybe a cousin, that is addicted to drugs, and they're doing everything wrong. They're screwing up their life. They're blowing through their money. They're killing their body. They're just, doing everything wrong. And so the family gets together and says, we're going to save this person. So this person walks into their home, their apartment, or maybe they were told to meet somebody at a restaurant, and they show up, and every single person that they're related to and every single person that they're friends with is there to intervene on their behalf. That is a torture program. Many aspects of Alcoholics Anonymous are torture programs in disguise. Okay. So I just feel that we have become so used to, so accustomed to these different ways where we're always trying to better ourselves. In some ways, religion is obviously a torture program. Um, when you have every part of your lived experience in the United States run now by the Department of Defense and by the military, then they are going to deploy not just pharmaceuticals to kill you or maim you, because you know they can't drop bombs on you, but they're also going to deploy torture programs that will seem normal. A lot of times, torture programs involve running around and uh, doing a bunch of box checking in order to qualify for a service like affordable housing or EBT or some kind of necessary component that, of life that you need to survive. We all need shelter. We all need to eat. So, you know, this is all modeled after the way prisoners are treated and the way prisoners are tortured. So I wanted to pop on here really quickly before I lose battery, and I just got the note that I'm about ready to my phone's about ready to die. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. And hopefully you guys got something from this, but just, always keep in mind that we're in the midst of a torture program that has saturated every aspect of our life, and it starts from birth. So if you recognize that and you look at every influencer and every situation you're in with a critical eye, then you can circumvent it and be a little bit more empowered. Okay, have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.